Hello, welcome to another edition of Bay Area CIL's Community Focus. My name is Catherine Jones and I'm the Executive Director for Bay Area Center for Independent Living. And today our episode will be about our supports planning agency, and I'm so delighted to announce that we have Tyrone Cooper, who is one of our lead supports planners for the Lower Shore, with us to talk about the supports planning agency and the contribution it's making to the community. Tyrone, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So Tyrone, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Bay Area CIL?
Yes. I'm a graduate from Salisbury University with a degree in social work. And before that, I was driving an ambulance for a local ambulance company when I was approached to come on board as a peer support person for Bay Area Center for Independent Living.
And what is a peer support person?
A peer support person is someone that goes into the nursing home and gives the residents the information about this program that they are allowed to transition back into the community.
Okay, so you started out as an EMT?
Yes.
And so you had that medical knowledge and background, and I'm sure you had experience going back and forth between the nursing and rehabilitative facilities and
Yes.
transporting patients. And so we were able to rope you in at Bay Area CIL
Yes.
as a peer support. And so going into the nursing facilities, you're talking about options counseling and transitioning individuals out of the nursing home. How would that process begin for an individual?
Well, an individual would hear from me or another peer about services that are available in the community, and then they would fill out a Medicaid waiver application, and the social worker at the facility can help them with that, or the options counselor can help them.
Okay. You've made reference about a community options waiver. What is meant by a waiver, and what is the difference between a community options waiver and community first choice?
Okay, so this program is broken into sections. So the community options is the actual waiver. That is the monies that helps the person transitions back into the community.
And this community options waiver is something that's put together through a social worker or a supports planner in the nursing facility?
Or an options counselor.
Or an options counselor.
Yes.
Okay. Now, community first choice, it's not what's considered a waiver
Correct.
program because it doesn't necessarily release the money.
Well, it's still this money, but it's people that's already living in the community.
Okay.
So these people coming out of the nursing home receive the actual waiver.
Okay. So it's just a term, waiver.
It's just a term,
It's
yes.
used just to mark that there is going to be a transition out of a nursing or rehabilitative facility. Yes. Okay, thank you. And so you started as a peer, and then slowly you moved into being a supports planner, and an excellent one, if I can say so, and being now a supervisor for the support planning agency. So what led you into the path of supports planning?
Well, I have always wanted to help people, so that's my passion. And this job became available once I gave up my EMT position.
Okay.
I said I'll come on board as a supports planner for Bay Area.
And was this something new for the organization? Were you part of the grassroots efforts in getting this agency started?
Yes, I was. I was one of the first supports planners at Bay Area. The program started in December of 2013.
Okay.
And we picked it up right from there, and they gave us the clients and we ran with it.
So what is a supports planning agency? What services do they provide to the community?
Okay, supports planners are case managers, and we put the services on the plan for the individual, the services that they need to remain safe at home.
So what kind of waivers or options do consumers have, and where do they get started in applying for these options or waivers?
Okay, so when a person is ready to become a part of the program, they go through the Medicaid waiver application, and then they would get an assessment done through the local health department.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get that assessment, that's when we begin the plan of service.
Okay, and that assessment is called the NRI?
It's called an NRI
Okay.
assessment.
And so some of our consumers start out in a nursing facility or
Yes.
rehabilitative facility.
Mhm.
And how are they identified as being potential candidates to be able to come back home and live independently?
Okay, so there's 3 levels or criterias of approval or eligibility, and that is the medical, technical, and financial eligibility.
Okay.
And the medical is everyone in the program has a nursing facility level of care.
Mm-hmm.
The technical is they have a community setting,
Mm-hmm.
and the financial is they meet the financial eligibility.
Okay. There's a lot of words and acronyms that are used in the world
Yes.
of transitioning
Yes, it is.
individuals, and particularly with any kind of Medicaid program. Again, a lot of acronyms. One of the acronyms that we hear frequently is CO for Community Options. Can you explain to the audience what is Community Options, who is eligible for a Community Options waiver, and really where does that process begin for them?
Okay, so community options are individuals living in a nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
These individuals fill out the Medicaid waiver application
With help from a social worker
with
or
help
family
from a
members?
social
Okay.
worker, with an options counselor, with a supports planner. And then they get the NRI done, that's the medical,
Health assessment.
and then they have to meet the financial eligibility. And then once they determine where they're going, that'll be the community technical eligibility, and then they transition back into the community.
Okay, so when it comes to the financial piece, who can qualify?
Everyone in the program has Medicaid. This is a Medicaid program. So they have to be within that financial need. So that's basically no more than $2,000.
No more than $2,000 in a year?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that transition back home for anyone who's eligible for the Community Options Waiver, who is there to receive them? Because with only $2,000 a year, that would make it very difficult to live on your own. So what supports do you make sure are in place for that individual so they're able to live independently?
Okay, so we have a personal care provider. That's an aide that comes in and helps them with their ADL, IADLs, that's activities of daily living. And they also have a nurse that comes in. They also have us as their supports planner that comes in. And then we can also give them a personal response system, a life alert. We can also give them home delivered meals. We give them anything and everything they need to remain safe at home.
Does the Community Options Waiver also pay towards a rent or mortgage, or who would fund for their personal living expenses outside of personal care aids and meals and life alerts?
So with the Community Options Waiver, there is money set aside through the Money Follows the Person program. And it comes up to about $700 that helps them in transitioning. It'll help them with security deposits, first month's rent, groceries, stuff like that.
And that $700 is a one-time fee, or does it reoccur every month?
It's just
eligible?
a one-time fee.
It's a one-time fee. So oftentimes, when you do see a consumer transitioning out of a nursing facility, what makes that transition such a success, other than having all the providers in place and also having support planning agent in place? What other, how else what else can be in place to really make it successful?
Well, I think the feeling that they get that they're becoming independent and they're going back home with their families or being independent makes the thrill and the transition worth it.
Okay, so many of the consumers, when they do return back home, they're returning to family oftentimes.
Yes.
Okay. Another acronym that we hear often is CFC for Community First Choice. What is Community First Choice, and how does it differ from Community Options Waiver?
Community First Choice is a program. It's not the waiver. It's a program. So these consumers, they get the same services except assisted living and adult medical daycare.
Okay, so community options, you can have assisted living and adult medical daycare.
Correct.
But community first choice, that is not an option.
Right.
So many of these consumers, are they coming out of nursing and rehabilitative facilities?
Well, the Community First Choice people are already living in the community.
Okay.
They're living with family or on their own.
Okay.
So we put the services in place that they need to remain safe at home.
Are they the same services as community
Pretty
options?
much, yeah, pretty much. Personal care, life alert, home delivered meals, and there is such thing as a adult medical daycare waiver.
Okay.
So they can get the adult medical daycare
Okay.
through another waiver.
Another acronym I hear all the time is CPAS for Community Personal Assistance Services. You can see I'm even stumbling on some of these acronyms.
Yeah.
So for CPAS, who qualifies for CPAS?
So these people are also already living at home, and when they get their assessment, they don't meet the nursing facility level of care, but they still need personal care. So they need at least one ADL service.
Okay, and again, define ADL.
Activities of daily living.
Okay. And so they too have a health assessment done, an NRI assessment
Yes.
from the health department and to determine their level of care. And okay, so the three different programs, three different acronyms again. CO stands for?
Community options.
And then we've got CFC, and that
Community
stands?
First Choice.
And then we have CPAS.
Community Personal Assistance Services.
Okay. For the CPAS services, how do you request those services? How could you get that process started if you are already receiving Medicaid?
Okay, so a lot of people call directly to the supports planning agency. We give them the number to DHMH, which is the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and they will do an assessment over the phone, an intake, I would say, over the phone, and they would determine if they're eligible or not for the program.
So you're saying no forms to fill out? You can literally talk to somebody live on the telephone and they
Yes.
can do an intake over the telephone for those services?
Yes.
Okay, and then Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, if someone does qualify for the services, what happens next once they have the candidate's name?
Well, once they get the determination that they're eligible for the program, then DHMH would alert the local health department to come out and do that assessment.
Okay, and the assessment's done, and then what happens after that? What's
And then
the
after the
process?
assessment's done, then the local health department would give us that assessment with their recommendations for services, and then the supports planner creates the plan of service,
Okay.
adding those services on the plan.
Okay, so you look at the plan and what the recommendations are from the nurse, and you come up with like a provisional plan
A
of
provisional
service
plan, yes.
to make sure that all the mechanisms are in place, all the agencies are in place. And then that plan is submitted to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and then what happens there?
So after the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene approves the plan, then we activate the plan,
Okay.
the services, by letting all of the providers know that it's time to begin services.
Okay, so once it's approved, then it's a go-ahead and the services are provided. If someone's needs change, let's say medically something else happens and they are in need of more personal care hours, and they call you and say, you know, Mr. Cooper, I'm really struggling in being able to keep up with my light household chores or cooking or bathing, what would you do then with that call?
Well, I would make a home visit, and then we would sit down and talk about their needs, and then we would create a whole new plan of service by adding those hours to the plan.
And is that resubmitted to Department of Health and
That
Mental
is
Hygiene?
resubmitted for approval.
Okay. Well, that's good because everyone's needs can change throughout the year.
Absolutely.
So as a supports planner, Tyrone, how often are you in contact with the consumer to make sure that all of their needs are being met?
We are obligated to call them once a month, and we have to visit them quarterly. Every 3 months, we knock on the door, and we're just coming to make sure the services are being delivered.
Okay. And what age do you have to be in order to receive the CO, the CFC, or the CPAS services?
Well, there is no age limit
Okay.
because everybody has different needs. So we range from children up to older adults.
Okay. And how far or how many counties do we provide these services for?
Bay Area Center for Independent Living covers all 9 counties on the Eastern Shore.
9 counties?
Yes.
Okay. And you're the supervisor for which counties?
The 3 lower counties,
Okay.
Wycomico, Worcester, and Somerset.
Okay. That sounds like a lot of driving
Yes,
in a support
it is.
planning agency. Okay. Could you provide some examples? And of course, our audience and even myself love to hear the success stories. Could you give us an example of someone who was able to successfully transition out of a nursing or rehabilitative facility and go home and are able to live independent?
Yes. There's many stories. I could just say in one instance, a lady was living in a nursing home and she wanted so desperately to go back home to her apartment. She had her own apartment and she was ready to go home. So we went in and did all of the things necessary to transition her back home. And she finally went home and she was the happiest person, and it was so wonderful.
And she was community first choice options?
She was community options.
Oh, she was
from a
community
nursing home.
options. Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. And how about from the CPAS program? Some
CPAS, I can say it was a certain person that all they needed was some very basic activities of daily living and some light housekeeping. And that was enough to satisfy them, and they were very happy.
Okay. Okay, so let's do a little recap, an overview.
Okay.
All the services that are provided, I think there's many in our community that would benefit from these services. And so if you do think that you qualify for being able to receive some kind of support at home, particularly when it comes to meals or personal care and or life alert system, how would you begin the process? Let's just restate it for the audience once again.
Okay. So if a person is already living in the community and they feel their self or their family members need these services, then they can actually call the supports planning agency and get the phone number to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And the number that they're going to get is an automated system.
Okay.
They will take their name, their phone number, and then someone would call them back, a live person, to do the
That's
intake over the phone.
Okay. There's a key phrase that's talked around our agency, and that phrase is person-centered planning or self-directed planning. Could you let our audience know why it's so important that the plan of service that is created is person-centered or self-directed? What is meant by that?
Okay, so person-centered planning means the individual has the right and the option to choose whatever services they need or want.
Okay.
So it's up to them to create and develop this plan that we're doing. It's not us, it's them.
So does Bay Area CIL actually provide the personal care aides or provide the meals?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
So what's the role of the supports planner?
We provide resources and we give them the option. So we are advocates and brokers
Gotcha.
for the consumers.
So if someone is eligible for personal care aid to visit their home, then you provide them with a list of resources. And then it's
Yes.
up to the consumer as to who they choose
Yes.
and to make contact. And you're there to help support them and guide them through the process.
Yes.
But Bay Area CIL doesn't actually provide the services. We coordinate the services.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
And all plans of services are approved through Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Okay.
Everyone.
All righty. If you were able to give our audience 3 reasons as to why you might want to consider for yourself or for loved ones support planning services, what would be 3 good reasons as to why you should consider contacting Department of Health and Mental Hygiene?
Well, if a family member or an individual felt they needed personal care services, then they would probably benefit from contacting
Okay.
the program.
For example, if they realized they couldn't keep up with light housekeeping duties,
Yes.
being able to cook for themselves, being able to bathe themselves,
Yes,
or needing
all of the
assistance
above, yes.
with all of that.
Mhm.
Okay. And what about medical transportation? Is that something that is paid for through Medicaid?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We're getting to the point of the episode where I love to ask this question. If money was not an issue,
Hmm.
what other services would you love to see our consumers receive?
That would be transportation and housing.
Okay. And transportation, since Medicaid does cover for medical transportation, what transportation are you referring to?
Anything except medical.
Okay, so transportation just to improve the quality of life, being
Yes.
able to go and visit family members and being able to, for instance, attend church
And-
services
And go out to the community
and be fully engaged.
Mhm.
Okay, so right now, if a consumer does need transportation services, what resources do we provide them for that?
well, we have shore transit.
Mm-hmm.
We have local taxi services
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and such.
And housing, affordable, accessible housing.
Yes.
What is meant by affordable, accessible housing? Because we hear that over and
Okay,
over.
so a lot of our clients may be in a wheelchair or using a walker or cane, and that would be accessible and affordable. It's coming to a point now where affordable housing is expensive now. So
If someone was not able to locate affordable, accessible housing and they needed to have modifications done to their home, for instance, to have their bathroom modified, does Medicaid help provide some of the funds for those modifications?
yes, they do. And we also add that to the plan of service also. And that's also ramps being built,
Okay.
bathroom modifications. We put all that on the plan of service and make it happen for them.
Okay. As a Center for Independent Living, we focus in on the independent living philosophy, meaning that we do everything in our power to help an individual be able to live at home. And our motto is, where every day is Independence Day
Yes.
at Bay Area CIL. What are the benefits to being able to live at home?
The benefits of living at home helps the person be more independent and be with their families and also receive the services that they need to live independent.
So they might not necessarily need the 24-hour skilled nursing care,
Correct.
but they could benefit from the maximum, which is approximately how many hours a day?
Well, I've seen cases where they were 12 hours a day for 7 days a week.
And if they live in the family home, then someone from within the family could provide the other 12 hours of care
Yes.
if it were to be at night or
Family support,
somewhere
yes.
along those lines. And Tyrone, I think most people in the community, if they had an option to be able to live at home and live with their loved ones and be independent,
Yes.
I think many of us would choose that. over moving into a nursing or rehabilitative facility. However, sometimes it is necessary for an individual to be in a nursing or rehabilitative
Correct.
facility, and we understand that,
Mhm.
that sometimes that 24-hour care is important. Has a consumer transitioned out of a nursing facility and lived within the community and then had to transition back before?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's happened before.
Okay,
That has.
because their medical needs
Have changed.
have changed.
And yes, they need the 24-hour care.
Okay, so the medical needs have changed, and then they would contact you, there would you would contact Department of Health and Mental Hygiene at that point.
It's a transition that happens through, like they go to the hospital, then from the hospital they would send them to rehabilitation in a nursing home.
Okay, and then the process would start all over again if they were able to come back into
Exactly.
the home, but some are not able to
Yeah.
transition back.
Because you have to have community Medicaid, living in the community, and after 30 days your Medicaid turns back into long-term care Medicaid.
How long can you qualify for these services?
Well, the services last forever, as
Okay.
long as you meet the 3 criteria: technical, medical, and financial.
Okay, and how often is that reassessed?
Every year,
Every
there's a
year.
redetermination.
Okay, so you go through the process of redeveloping a plan of service,
Yes.
reevaluating to see if there's more care needed or less care needed.
Correct.
And you start the process again through Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So have we had consumers over the length of the time that they've been with our agency for 3 years?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
definitely.
All right.
Many.
Okay. Tyrone, I want to thank you again so much for coming out and sharing your expertise when it comes to Supports Planning Agency. And I want to thank you on behalf of the community for everything that you're doing for individuals so they're able to live at home. And thank you again.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for watching Bay Area CIL's Community Focus, where every day is Independence Day. We hope you tune in for our next episode. If you would like to learn more about our independent living services, please look at the YouTube channel at www.pac14.org to learn more about our organization. Thank you for making us part of your day.